take the lead on our opening panel to set the stage for this is an old friend of Media Posts, Scott Goodson. He's the CEO of Strawberry Frog. He founded this agency 24 years ago, which is a longevity in the field that's rare. But he also has, over those years, worked with some of the leading brands, including Heineken, Pepsi, and Google. Please welcome our old friend, Scott Goodson.
Thank you, Steve. I feel really old now. And cold, colder than old. But as I get older, you always feel colder. All right, so I would like to just briefly introduce myself, or actually the company I work with. It's called Strawberry Frog, and we have a specialty. We create movements or design movements inside organizations to galvanize employees and change culture. And we do that for companies like Pfizer and for Walmart. And then we do movements outside organizations to mobilize consumers. And tomorrow I'll have the opportunity with Ramon Soto, who's the CMO of one of the largest health systems in the country. He'll present work we're doing, and then I'll have a chance to discuss that more. And with me today I have two distinguished guests, one that represents a really interesting and game-changing new women's health product, or a company, I should say, and a second that represents a large health system from Pennsylvania. But I thought maybe you could briefly introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about the companies you're with.
Okay, you want me to go first?
Sure.
Catherine Atkinson. I have been in first life sciences, then went over to healthcare, and now pharma. For a little over 20 years. I won't exactly date myself. Second career was a journalist before that. I work for Evofem Biosciences. It is a company that simply exists to empower women when it comes to their sexual and reproductive health choices. We came out with a brand new innovative contraceptive called Phexxi in May of 2020. It was approved by the FDA. We actually formally launched it because COVID. We thought, we'll hold back on the launch because it's COVID, offices are closed. Certainly, that'll be over in a couple of months. Well, it wasn't. So we launched in September of 2020. And Phexxi is a first of its kind, on-demand contraceptive gel for women, non-hormonal, all-natural, and it works by maintaining the pH in the vagina. We say the word vagina a lot, by the way, so I hope you guys don't get offended. Yes. Thank you. If you ever saw the commercial, and I understood you played it at some point in the last year. Yeah. I think we were the first company to ever say the word vagina on air in a commercial, too. We got credited for that because it's a body part. And we want to call it like we say it. We're very bold, provocative brand. I'm going to toss it over to you, but I thought it was funny because when we were doing the introductions before this call this week, he started talking about the colonoscopies, and I was talking about vaginas, and we thought, this is going to be a great panel.
Yeah, we're not as exciting as a healthcare system for our language, but I'm Ryan Younger. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at Virtua Health, and we're a mid-sized health system in New Jersey. We have about 300 locations, and that includes 5 hospitals, ambulatory surgery centers, urgent care centers, physician offices, rehab, all the gamut of services. And we also have a number of really important partnerships. We just recently formed a new college that has 3 schools, a medical school, a nursing school, and a health professions school at Rowan University. And we partner with University of Pennsylvania for our cancer program and the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia for our neonatal intensive care and pediatrics. So again, we provide local care for primary care, and then that service area extends broadly when we're talking about heart surgery and neurosurgery and organ transplantation. It's a bigger service area. We're not-for-profit, so a lot of what we do, we invest back into the communities we serve, and we're doing a lot of work to address social determinants of health, health disparities, health equity, and that's probably what I would say. I've been in the industry for, again, I'll leave mine a little vague as well, but I'll say 25 years in health systems. And I guess I've got to start thinking of how to say the word too. So I was thinking about some of our recent promotions, and when we did something called Real Talk with Women, and we moved a lot of our outreach to digital during COVID, of course, and we had somebody named Madge the Vag. And when we promoted her, we actually got a number of our leadership asked us, they thought we'd been hacked. So that was definitely, out of the ordinary for us.
So let's start with a little bit of a higher question. We as marketers and media, we don't live, independent of culture. Culture affects us. It's all part of our daily lives and has a big impact on marketing. Has the changes that have happened in the last little while in culture, have they helped or have they hindered you? And maybe we could start with Catherine. In your particular case, the changes, for example, with Roe v. Wade, women's health, has that been a help to you or has that hindered you?
I think most people naturally would think a reversal, but the Dobbs decision, the reversal of Roe v. Wade would help contraceptive companies, right? You saw, for those who are in contraceptive health, you saw the stock immediately go up because people start investing thinking, okay, this is going to be the answer. But then you saw a lot of the politicians, even a Supreme Court judge, start to question why we're giving access to contraception and giving it for free to women. And then you start to see stock drop. You start to see VCs back out of funding women's healthcare companies, and you've seen a number of healthcare companies over the last 8 months actually have to fold into others, go bankrupt, reverse merge. It's not been a great environment for women's healthcare, and it's sad because no matter where you fall on the line of Roe v. Wade, the only way to prevent an abortion is to give access to contraception. That's it. And so it is kind of sad, but it has, the interest is there, and I think women are being, coming to their doctors, maybe having different conversations, and I think that's where it starts.
Do you feel like women are more engaged, more proactive as a result of this change, or are they more leaning back?
No, I think some of the women are definitely more active, but I think it's fear-based, right? Because what's going to happen if I can't? So you see doctors, Planned Parenthood even put out, I think, a survey, and they said a lot of women are being counseled about having, their tubes tied, or maybe just going straight to an IUD and having more permanent options put in, whether that's best for the woman's lifestyle or not. It doesn't matter, right? It's like, what can we do so that you don't get into that situation?
So do you feel like you need more information in the market? So is your content more information, educational, or is it?
That is a great question. And so Phexxi is in a brand new category of contraception. So right now on the contraceptive charts that are out there, there are 18 categories. The FDA nor the CDC hasn't updated their chart in over 11 years. Phexxi came out in 2020, so it doesn't exist yet. It's own category because it's a vaginal pH modulator. So there's work that we have to do there to have people understand. So there's a lot of education there. But I think in terms, and if you look at in the history and over the decades, if you look at even the chart from the CDC, they ladder it up with efficacy. So it's here's the most efficacious, let's just put that in you, whether that's what's good for you or not. You may have comorbidities, you may have side effects. That may not be what's right for your lifestyle. Why would you want to take something every single day if you don't have sex every single day and it's causing you, really sometimes painful or debilitating side effects? With Phexxi, it's all natural and it's non-hormonal, and you only use it when you have sex. So it's a very revolutionary and very empowering product for women, but it is a matter of, for us, changing the conversation and really changing the way healthcare providers counsel women, right? Sit down and talk to them about what is best for you and your lifestyle and your needs. And do you really want a permanent option or something semi-permanent? Do you want non-hormonal versus hormonal? How often do you have sex? We're not having those kinds of conversations, and those are the kinds of conversations that really need to take place to really make it a better place for women. And you want women to feel good,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I was going to add, it has given us a chance to kind of weave a fine line in terms of all these trends going on. And, it gives us an opportunity with information to be that trusted partner in the community. And I think that's where there's been a lot of opportunity. But as you're talking about some of these social issues, clearly, there's a very divided country out there. And, where that became a challenge for us during the pandemic has been on vaccination, for example. And you try to provide factual information, the science, but there's people on both sides of that and what they think is fact. So even when you think you're being very objective, I think it's challenging in today's environment.
So I mean, sorry, go ahead.
I just said correct. Great point.
Yeah, I was going to say, prior to COVID, healthcare was important, but then it was like red hot for 3 years. Like if you worked in healthcare, you were the coolest, most interesting and relevant industry to be in. How do you think about engaging your buyers today, Ryan, in a post-COVID world? I understand the vaccination, but as an area, health has become much more, awareness is much greater among the general population. People are thinking about health more.
Oh, absolutely. We have to really think about that whole spectrum of care that we can provide to people. And people want to, be a part of that journey, that wellness journey. And so there's a lot more information going around about partnering with people in their healthcare. And the last place you want to be actually is the hospital. So we have to think about engaging people around wellness, around ways that they can get information and be empowered and take care of their health and respect, the knowledge and the ability they have to do things.
So that's an interesting point. In that respect, do you need to back away from like a more clinical approach where science becomes questioned by certain people in the community and more into an empathetic message? Is it a time for a change in how you go to market with your idea?
I think that's part of it, and I think it also depends. Everyone always loves that answer, it depends. But on the product that you're talking about, because that decision-making journey is long and it's diverse in different areas. So you're going to talk very differently about something like primary care, find a doctor near me, and how you advertise that, versus a much longer buying cycle like orthopedic surgery, where you're doing everything possible probably to avoid that surgery and trying lots of different options. So you have to serve up information that's very targeted around each step of the way.
Can you elaborate, both of you, on how the customer journey has changed from maybe a few years ago to today?
I would just say in general, I think it's more fragmented when I think about the media portion of it, how I can reach somebody, because there's so many different channels, and we've got to really be out there thinking about how to move people kind of down that funnel. So that's one of the ways that jumps to mind.
Yeah, for me, again, dating myself a bit, I thought it was always cool when I could build a new website and push that out to people with campaigns and everything, but that's not really where it's at. We've really had to go meet our customers where they are, and for us, especially with contraception, you're targeting women in their reproductive years, and that skews younger. Our average age is 33 years old, and they're in platforms that didn't exist when I was coming up, right? Or even when I was a journalist before I got into this, that's not where they're finding their news. It's so interesting that this week, on the way here on the plane, I saw the chief medical officer for WebMD had said they were doing some research, asked a patient where they get their news, and she said TikTok, and he said, no, your news, and she said, TikTok is where she gets her news. And, if you're not going and really meeting the patient where they are, the customer, or your particular, customer where they are, you're missing out. You're just not going to go build something else and they're going to come. And so I think that totally where the customer is now is so different than where they were 5-10 years ago. The traditional marketing that you used to do with the big campaigns, or even these big splash. We had this great commercial out with Annie Murphy from Schitt's Creek, and it made a big splash. We got talked about. We won a ton of awards thanks to some great agency partners, one of which is here today. It was on linear TV, but it made us look good on the creative side and won a lot of awards. But really, what drove the business for us were the paid and digital media efforts that we had, and meeting women where they were, the paid media, the paid social. Those were what led to the high value actions that we really needed to see for us.
Did you have any surprising emerging media channels? You mentioned TikTok. Did you use TikTok in a big way or not?
We started using it in a much bigger way after we saw the initial results. And there were even things it was so funny I had mentioned, because you had triggered, when you said, would you say Pandora? I think I was like, yeah, we did that too. And I remember when the lady who led our DTC efforts came to me and asked me to sign an purchase order. And I was like, we're going and we're doing all these, we're sponsoring playlists and she says, yes. And I said, well, show me the results before I spend this kind of money. And she showed me the results. And I was like, okay, do you need any more cash? Because they were very valuable to us. And I was really pleasantly surprised to see that.
So audio, TikTok, any other emerging media or technology you guys have tried?
I mean, I think it's a combination of all of those different channels. We definitely talked a lot about social and even how that changes within social, maybe trending more towards TikTok and somewhat away from something like Twitter. But all of the different channels are making a big difference. And we do talk a lot about, we were having a conversation about audio, because when you think about how much you're consuming, both streaming, but also even terrestrial and different ways that you're accessing, and you're accessing multiple channels at once. I mean, it's almost endless how much media we're consuming and how many opportunities there are to target people.
This is the Brand Insider Summit, so I want to switch for a second to the brand. We heard a moment ago that brands that are, I guess, more effective are simplifying, clarifying, and are more meaningful. How do you think about the way you go to market and the brand? Do you feel that you're delivering on that, or do you feel that your idea needs to change coming out of COVID in this new culture we're living in?
I can take a stab at that.
That was a trick question. No, I'm not. Just a...
Our brand identity was really key for us in establishing the product. I mean, it really went with the mission of the company. Our CEO, it really matched her specifically too. She is kick-ass. She battled breast cancer, very aggressive breast cancer, trying to bring this product to the market. And took investor meetings after chemo treatments with no hair to do everything she could to raise $400 million to bring this product to market. And she's bold, she's provocative, and she traveled the world in support of women to give them access to contraception even before Phexxi came around for years. So this has really been her life's work. And we had a product that was so innovative and so new, and it was bold and provocative, and we wanted to make sure that we stuck to that. And so anything that we do in our branding that we carry through has to be authentic. And so I would say that while that has not changed, so it has not evolved, I think we are still very bold. We're a very provocative brand. We want to really tell it like it is. There are so many, I could go on and on. The answer to your question is, what we will do with the brand, though, is probably go a little bit more clinical especially on the HCP side of things, to help legitimize it. Ours was one of the first products, I think, or maybe the only product so far that has been evaluated differently. It's not on a Pearl Index for healthcare providers. The efficacy was put on a Kaplan-Meier. It's a time to event. It's a whole different way of looking at efficacy. Even healthcare providers didn't understand that. And so we have to probably get a little bit more clinical to legitimize it with that side of the audience. But the rest of the brand for us, except for adding that little legitimate piece in there as a bona fide, product that doesn't have its own category because the FDA and CDC haven't updated their charts, those are the things that we're going to have to probably add a little bit of a flavor to. But we're going to keep pushing. We've done very well with what we have, and that's, for me, a little bit about why we keep doing that, because women deserve to be direct and transparent. And sex isn't, something to avoid, and you don't want to get pregnant again. Sex is about intimacy with your partner. And that's really what our brand is about. It's about enjoying that experience, too. It's not a fearful thing.
So intimacy obviously is different to different age groups and different ethnic groups and so forth. Does the diverse media environment that Ryan described, does it help you tell or reflect a really diverse audience of women who have different experiences with sex and And do you use media in different ways to engage them in different ways?
I wouldn't say in this early launch that we have done that. I mean, would you? I'm just looking at my agency and our marketing team here. Yeah, I feel like, yeah, I mean, there was only so much money that we had in this, and, you know, we had to put a lot of money towards public affairs and, you know, trying to get the Affordable Care Act followed, because for women, again, access to contraception is important. So we really have a lot of other priorities that we had to do. It is something that is important to us. Again, sex isn't just, you know, it's not about just a man's pleasure, it's about a female pleasure. There's a 510K for lubrication on the product that we haven't even begun to dive into, because it can be a more pleasurable experience for the woman too. And who ever heard of that, right? So, I mean, there's just so much that we can do that we will continue to push on. It's interesting. We could go down a lot of different roads with it, but yeah, I'll stop there.
Okay. Ryan, what about you? What do you think?
On the diversity end or the whole broad
The whole
brand?
brand, yeah. Side.
We
could talk about that intimacy place if you want, but whatever you prefer.
We did a pretty significant rebrand a few years ago. It was probably, whenever you say a few years ago, it all blends together over the last few years. But it was kind of the year leading into COVID. And our brand positioning was to create a more purpose-driven brand. And so our positioning is about being here for good. That actually really got strengthened during the last few years. You can imagine how much broader that use became and how much we were able to lean into that. We kind of started it because we had acquired a health system and we were moving from a community-based healthcare system to one that was providing more tertiary care. And it was really important positioning for us. We're competing a lot with big academic medical centers in Philadelphia. And so Here for Good, again, had a lot of different meanings, but gave us that strong positioning. And then, you know, I was also going to just lean into the question around diversity, because that is such an important topic for us in health equity. Within the healthcare industry, I think COVID actually widened a lot of the gaps, and we talk a lot about the social disparities in health and kind of how the structure creates access barriers for different groups. And so that's something we're really leaning into. That's a major priority for us. But in terms of also how we use media to reach different audiences, it's critical. I mean, we're trying to serve, our population is much more consolidated. As a healthcare system, you know, most healthcare is local. And so we're providing care for people in South Jersey predominantly, but it's a very diverse population base. So to be targeted with these different platforms and to reach different audiences is instrumental to what we do.
Yeah, and I would just add, you know, for us, that diversity piece will come. You know, as I mentioned last night, when you have payers, you know, with a new product in a new category that are not quite complying with the Affordable Care Act, you really are going to focus on where you can get maximum impact with a new product and a new launch, right? Because you've got to be able to bring in the money to be able to do all that other work as well. And so that's kind of where we are right now.
So I see Steve is kind of lurking over on the side, giving me a very positive smile. I have one last question before we open to the audience. I just thought it'd be interesting to end with, what is the biggest problem each of you are facing at the moment? What's the Gordian knot that you need to untangle?
I guess the challenge I think about a lot is around privacy and security. And as we continue to provide more personalized solutions, which is really important, you know, there's always that balance, and we're always being challenged in that area. So it's just something to work through.
Yeah, I mean, for me, obviously being in a new category, and I mentioned the payers, I'll step away from that if we want to focus on, you know, meeting the particular FEXI woman where she's at. That's going to be very important for us as we move forward. We have got a lot of new data. So we did a research project in the fall, and we've come up with our 3 patient types that we know are resonating with both healthcare providers and women, and who are really reaching, you know, out for FEXI and raising their hand and saying this is what they want to use. And now with that information, for us to now go back out and market, and I can only imagine what the return on investment will be now that we know where we're hitting. And so our efforts this year, I think, will be more impactful to us as a business. And so that's what I need to do.
Great, thank you. Steve?
Let's take questions. Please raise your hand and we'll get the mic to you. Right there.
Hi, nice panel. Thank you very much. Jim D'Antoni from Dish Media. You talked about trying to reach a diverse set of groups. Sometimes that may be with the same product, for the same product. Do you use different channels along with different creative? And do you sometimes go into, and I also heard earlier from Erica, personalization. And sometimes, the ad and the optics of the people they're seeing matter in terms of, so do you go into certain marketing shoots thinking about two different kinds of shoots? And then I'm just curious about that, and then using different channels.
I think that's a great point. I think it's all of the above. The creative is very different, and I do think people want to see people that look like them or identify like them, and the channels are critical to that as well, and what people are consuming. So really understanding that audience and targeting it in a way is really important. So one of the programs that we marketed this past year was we created a primary care practice that was really targeted for the LGBTQ community called Pride Primary Care. And yes, the creative was different. The channels that we were using to reach that population were very different than our overall brand.
What were they,
What a
Ryan?
great example, by the way. That's
Yeah.
a great example.
What were they, Ryan? What different channels were you using?
Well, we had to look more at what those communities were using in terms of their media. So sometimes it was specific digital newsletters that they were seeking. Sometimes it was tapping into conversations that they were having in different social channels, and then using the platforms and contextual programmatic marketing, again, looking at it that way. So it was different.
Catherine, you mentioned TikTok. I'm curious, could you tell us a little bit more about specifically how you use TikTok? What kind of creative, what kind of targeting? Were you using influencers? What form did the paid media take?
Sure, we did have influencers last year, but we also had just great creative and content that would be posted and for paid social, just the typical ways that you would do that.
Were you echoing that great ad, or were you using different creative for TikTok?
Everything echoed our great ad, right? We stayed pretty true to and consistent to the brand of the House Rules campaign and the flavor of that. Mm-hmm. Not Annie Murphy itself, but House Rules, meaning it's a very empowered product for women, right? They kind of set their own rules in their house, so to speak. So.
Hi, Brendan, professional question asker. Great panel, and I'm curious that you talked about social and some emerging channels. I'm wondering if either of you have considered partnering with startups around rethinking customer acquisition, like the litany of great femtech product startups out there, or like the Medifines of the world in customer acquisition. And I'm wondering, if not, why not? And if so, what was that like, and what was the tough part of a partnership like that?
Well, so for us, we are really reevaluating everything that we've done. We came out really big and strong, and we did a big linear TV campaign. We had House Rules that hit everywhere. We built a lot of awareness. We pushed a lot of women into the funnel, and then they couldn't get Phexxi, right? Because there's no category. The payers weren't complying with the ACA. So we recognized that we had to kind of backpedal and do a few other things and prioritize what we're doing this year. We also now know who our patient is, and we also now know where the prescribers are and who's most likely to prescribe and who has those type of patients, right? So we want to do things a lot differently this year. And so utilizing more specialty type partners is not off the table for us. And so we have to do what we can with the dollar. I mean, we're a small company, let's face it. We're a very, very small company, right? So Evofem really needs to use the dollars wisely and go for the biggest return on investment. And so those are things that we are open to, for sure.
Us as well. I think, we're constantly evaluating. It's such the market just continues to change at a rapid pace. So I think if we weren't open to that, I think we'd be in big trouble. So certainly we have a lot of established partners, but are always kind of looking where somebody might be doing something better and just trying to keep up with all the change. I mean, that's that's such a constant in this field right now.
This, the DTC topic is one that we're going to extend into a roundtable discussion at the end of the morning. So I hope you guys will be able to join it, and you can follow up there and go deeper there. But for now, Scott, Catherine, and Ryan, thanks so much.